eye back in the house. I know, looks nasty, right? I was going to do some work on reels the other night, decided not to. I was going to do some other work, decided not to. So, welcome to the show. We are back in the house. We got an unboxing to do. We've been snowed in for a week. I did go to work, but we got snow again today. So you guys know the deal. AliExpress likes to send a couple different packages, all packaged into one. So we've got a 2-for-1 special today. These little guys and this guy. This is the big ticket maker, right? Was this? So we'll save it for last. So we got this little package, and somebody just jumped in. Please feel free in these live streams, comment about something if you got any questions about the channel. As long as it's not too DUMB to say kind of stuff, feel free to comment. All that stuff helps the channel. We're trying to grow the channel again this year. I know I say that all the time and then I take off for like a year. But I'm hoping, before I completely unbox this, here's the baits I'm hoping we found. I lost them and then I found them again on where to get them ordered from. So give me 1 second here. And it was mainly one bait. I got, I think, 2 different colors. But this bait right here, and you guys comment. If you're like me and you only have one bait of anything, you don't even like to go fishing and use it as far as that bait because it never fails. If you've got one of something, you lose that one. So I like to at least have 2 hard baits, several soft plastics. We all hate to get down to last like 5 to pack of soft plastic baits. That ends up being the color they're hitting on, all that kind of stuff. So this bait right here came off AliExpress, and it's nothing special, but it is a fish catching machine, and it's very cheap. Actually, let me move this white. I think that's interfering with our flow we got going on here. So I'll talk about this. This is a piece of a chatterbait, one of the AliExpress knockoffs. Not a jackhammer, but still. Actually, that one's still good. I robbed the blade off of it. So that little bait right there, hopefully you guys can see it. I can't tell how the glare is. In that color, just was on fire for me shortly after I first got it. And it kind of looks like it's got too big of hooks, but I don't know. It just works, and those hooks are actually better to be a little bit bigger for bigger fish. So I ordered what I'm hoping is the exact same bait. And I kind of just had to guess because the actual place I ordered this one from, how, like I've mentioned in several videos, you get it from a certain store off AliExpress and then all of a sudden it's like not available anymore. But then you can usually find it. There's usually a store somewhere that still sells the exact same thing. So just by judging off that, it looks like we found it. For some reason this one looks a little shorter. Let's see. I found that's the color, but I think this is a smaller bait. And I think it was only in one size. Let me look. It just looks a little smaller, but I guess that's it. And it does look like it's got smaller hooks. I guess it's the same bait. So the original one, if you remember right, that one there, I'm almost positive I did not do any switching of hooks. But it looks like that's a same bait, just in a size, not even a size smaller, just a hair different size. Like the tail looks a touch different in person. It could just be that it's simply just the hooks, but let's get a couple of them out. So you can see that the color is supposed to be the same, and they're that can be a good or a bad thing. Sometimes actually having a color pattern that's slightly changed gives you a little bit of room to play with kind of stuff. Try if one's a little duller than the other one, just certain times you feel like more confident that the more natural, more dull one will work better than a little bit brighter one. So my favorite color was this color here, which these look like they're close. As you can see, the red has gotten splattered. They put it back further and further, which I don't think that'll make a big difference as long as the colors are pretty much there. And it may not matter at all, just these little baits, as long as they, get down and do what they do. The color being sort of natural with just a few highlights. It's kind of close to what I call the clown color. I like baits like that, and then this is just more of the kind of that purple and blue. Little almost ghosty like, a little transparent on the bottom. So yeah, let me see. Let me get rid of this trash. I would almost swear that this is a bigger bait than these, but you guys tell me, does it look like it on camera? I almost have to get a measuring tape out here to measure these things. Where's my, oh boy, looking for anything in here is a mess. I know it's got bigger hooks. I have calipers somewhere. I have no idea where they're at. No idea. They're not in eyesight, so I'm not even going to look for them. But just judging off of looking at them, I guess they're the same bait, just the difference in bigger hooks gives this one a bigger appearance just glancing at it. But that'll work. Okay, I know I've wasted too much time on that. These are awesome little baits for just any little ultralight BFS fishing. And you can swim them different ways. You can try to work them almost like you would a jerk bait. There's just a lot of different ways. And even a jerk bait. Like you always hear people talk about a jerk bait. Is it very important, which I believe it is, to jerk it on a slack line and then pop it back. But I've seen it because Charles did it to me. Was whacking them, catching them faster than me by doing this crazy slow pull, stop, pull. There's just different times, especially these little skinnier, I call them pencily looking, jerky type baits. When that water's cooler, just weird things will get you hits with those kind of baits. But anyway, I will take the original one and probably one of these color ones to throw in my box, this box that I have a little bit of everything. To where if I'm going fishing just with whether it be just somewhere where I can't take all of my tackle, I can at least take a couple boxes and this box to know I've got all my bases covered, and then I'll throw these in my BFS box basically for the backup. So I will have 2 backups if I were to lose that bait, while I'm out fishing or whatever. And if I were to go strictly BFS fishing, I'll probably take my BFS box, and I don't know if I'd pull that stuff out of my day box or not, but my BFS box, you guys have seen it. It's like it's loaded full. So let's get to the main showstopper, gobstopper. We've been waiting on this due to the weather and everything. Even though we know AliExpress is slow, right? But it was slower than normal just for the weather. I've got some newer colored chatterbaits. They should be here just within another couple days. We can compare them to the colors we've already got and liked from AliExpress. And this better be all I was expecting it to be. Back when I stopped fishing just over a year ago, this spool wasn't available. And then when I got back in, started looking on AliExpress again, this one popped up and I'm like, oh, what is this spool? So I thought I had to try it. So this is that new, already comes bearings loaded on both sides. That's kind of new. Huh. So not only they give you this one already set and in, typically they don't. What's that all about, I wonder? So let's see. Okay, I thought this one, it technically could even be shallower to be a true BFS, but this will be good for me. But I think it's supposed to have boost. So if you can see that, it's just a typical very light spring. Yeah, it is going to have the boost. So then with the boost spool, you come up, so right there is a soft, and then that right there. So that right there is the boost part of the boost spool. And I'll explain a lot. I've seen everybody and their brother get this the wrong way on what the boost spool does. So, and it does kind of twist out. So the boost spool, let me explain that. Now hang on, first of all, let me get, this spool is damaged, but I'll try to show you on just, here's an old school, a lot of you guys will know this spool. So this one's like a funky, it's got a bunch of, this spool in its day, and it's still a very effective spool. Kind of shows you how they used to mess with the taper on the rotor. If you guys can see how that cone is curved in, and they played with springs, with the thickness of this, and used to do all that, but it just was a soft and light. Probably not quite like what the SVs are, but when this thing was tuned, I honestly think the weight on there that you see back behind there was to actually help even come out faster and maybe hold out a little longer, the centrifugal force holding it out into the magnet. But this was a highly tuned spool for back in the day, came on the Ito. But I've heard it explained, I don't know, oh boy, time out. Take a fireball break. When you think boost, you think, oh, something kicks in and gives it the boost. It's kind of the opposite. And I think it takes a little getting used to setting them and then casting and what it'll let you do. But the part that is different, like I just showed you another one, it comes out all the way to here just on a softer spring. And that's your traditional, almost all of your older Daiwas up until they came out with the boost. They either came straight out, they may have twisted, kind of like this one does, or they didn't twist. Either way, they just came out on a certain set spring that you could mess with the spring tensions. You could change that around to kind of get them to do something. But when you cast, that's just what you had working with. And you see the newer reels coming out that aren't Daiwa. A lot of guys are trying to come out with stuff that you can set it to a certain way, how far it'll let it come out or how far it already starts out, but you can't have like the dynamic, like it's not changing anything like during the cast. Like when you start, what's up, Brew Tank? Fireball Friday, you're new here, yeah, right. I could technically start having Fireball Fridays, but then we'd have to have Fireball Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. But no. Anyway, back to the boost part. The boost part is the stiffer spring. So what it allows you to do, anyway, in my mind and how I use it on mine, is I feel it lets you be able to cast harder once you've got your reel set up for your basic, you know, you're casting, but you're not casting as hard as you can. You're just, you maybe you could set up a reel to where you're kind of flipping and pitching, you're casting, but you're not putting everything into it. So it's basically just this is what's coming out. You're not putting enough, you know, when you cast, how hard you cast will generate how much, you know, rotations this spool initially starts out. You know, you just flick it out there and it's going to go fast, but not as fast as, I mean, you rear back and really sling it, this thing kicks up to a lot of RPMs. So if you have it set to where you've kind of got your brake setting up to maybe 2, 4, 5, 6, 8, whatever. You kind of get that set to how you're casting, and you kind of want it to go where it's more or less freed up. But then if you do make a harder cast, that's when this will come out, and in a sense gives you kind of a buffer and more brakes for that initial cast when you first start out. So I think a lot of people don't realize that if you want a rod like for not flipping and pitching, you're doing like casting down a bank, you're running bank, you're running water, but you're not casting as hard as you can. But you've got the brakes set to where, and maybe the bait you're using, you've got it set up. And so what I kind of typically do is I get out there and when I'm testing or messing with my reels, I basically set mine to where I can cast as like literally as hard as I can with the bait, and I try to adjust my brakes for that, and this is actually working. And then what it'll let you do is then when you slow down and cast, typically you find like your brakes are a little more freed up. If you go out there and you're just dialing in the brakes to not backlash and you're not casting real hard, sometimes you can slow down how much distance you can get. But it's just built in on this, what they're calling the SV Turbo 1000S. Let's see on this side, same thing. But what it lets you do is, like I mentioned, it's a buffer, and it will let your, I guess, lack of a better word, inability to thumb a spool right on the first part of the hard part of the cast. It's kind of, since it's got a two-stage, it's sort of working like your dual braking spools work, the ones that have centrifugal things coming out and a magnet, on the side plates. Because in your centrifugal stuff, the ones that are spring-loaded, or some of them are just they're not even spring-loaded. Shimano's had a lot of those. Just when you cast real hard, they come out and they rub, but as soon as the cast slows down, they're not really doing anything after the cast slows down, and then that's when the magnetic part kind of keeps it going slower. And that's what this does on that first part, because the fastest this spool is going to go on any cast you make, the fastest this spool goes is when you first cast. From the second you let off your thumb, it'll spool up to a certain speed, and then it just starts slowing down. So it's that spool up to that speed that is going to let this thing kick out. Sometime during that, if you cast that hard, it pops it out into the boost part that actually starts bringing back that crazy cast you just made. It's gonna keep this from overrunning, and then when it's basically done its job, when this is just pulling out line and these RPMs slow down enough, then it goes back in. It was out at its furthest thing, and then it goes back in, and it's just that light springs. It's still going to be out probably the rest of the cast, just enough to be, creating a little bit to where it won't let the spool overrun, especially on a BFS with the lighter bait on the other end. And I don't know if this one's going to do the right thing, but all the ones I've got, the Steezes, I've got two shallow spool Steezes, the Zillion, and then a regular spool. Steez, sorry, and then the crazy HLC. If you guys remember right, we kind of reworked that one a couple years ago when I first got it, because it was actually unruly. It was a little too far gone. Brew Tank bought a 24 Steez, so it's awesome. Crazy thing is the color pairs perfect with the X Pride, but you just can't do it. You can't put the Steez on the X Pride. Why not? Let me show you. I've got two of them. I've got a Steez Limited on the Poison Adrenaline, which that is a perfect, that Steez Limited in either the Charlotte Spool or the other one, and the Poison Agenda has all that silver on it. That thing just goes together and feels very good. But then I also have, and you're probably right, that newer Steez would probably go better, but I stuck this Limited is on the X Pride, and the X Pride's got the silver. And that's what I was trying to figure out. The new Steez, I know it's shaped a little different. They've got one up at Rogers. I need to take one of mine off and go up to Rogers and compare them and how they go on to real seats, the overall size and stuff. I just don't know if I should probably buy one, but I just can't make myself buy one yet. So yeah, here's a reel. Here's a rod and reel. Up until a few years ago, I never saw myself ever buying and using. If you guys remember the whole swim bait deal, this crazy Steez HLC, I'd never see myself using these crazy knobs, this crazy rod with the double things. But this is an amazing rod. This Tequila Baccarat, no heavier of a rod than it is, as much power as it has, as well as this thing does cast once we got it settled down some. This is a fish, just a crazy. You can throw a lot. You can't go too crazy on the swim baits, but like it says right on it, 12 to 30 pound line, 3/4 to 4 ounce bait. But yeah, you can definitely throw some heavy weight on it, and the fish catching. It's got these double-footed guides like all the way up into the, and even the tip is like an extra built, just kind of a pretty stout looking, makeup. Yeah, the Tequila Baccarat with that Steez HLC, I call it. It may sound funny to use the word finesse, but it's like a finesse swim bait rod. Like, everybody's throwing these honking this and that and whatever, but this 7-foot lightweight crazy thing can handle some pretty big swim baits. The big bladed cheddar, like big jigs, like all kinds of crazy stuff. It's like a finesse, heavy powered combo that just flat out does it for any of that, any bigger stuff, anything I like. It goes beyond what I would ever really want to throw. But yeah, let's get out. Where's my, let me see. Here's still my favorite combo. I don't have a spool I don't have any of the boosts that aren't already, like right at the moment, rigged up on rods and reels, but I'm not sure where I'm going to try. This spool actually will go, I might try it out in the Steez that I've got on the Super Destroyer. I know it's a BFS spool, but it's got to be heavy. I don't know. It's got both the bearings on it. I don't know what it weighs, but let's just compare it to something. Let's compare it to something with my crazy. I've had this thing for years. I need to update it. Look, you can tell when I was learning how to stipple. I was trying out a few different patterns before I tried them out on my PSA dagger. I had that one down pretty good, and that's actually a pretty good. That's a pretty grippy surface once you have it on like a handle form. But yeah, I was trying different stuff. You guys know the deal. So we're going to compare it. This only has one bearing. Back in the day, 14.6 grams, 13.7 with an extra bearing. So I'd say you got what? Those are probably 1 gram, so that's probably 12. I think that's like 2 or more. It's like a housing with the bearing on it. I'm pretty sure those weigh like 2.5. So we could, I'm guessing this isn't a super lightweight spool, but with the boost. I'm just gonna have to try it. I don't think it's any shallower than the. Let me get my shallow one out. Where are you at? I don't think that's not it. Here, I'll just cut this one off. Hang on a second. Because I don't think it's any shallower than the shallow on the limited, which those are like $100 spools or whatever they are. I can't weigh it because I got the line on it still. I guess I could strip it off, but I don't really feel like doing that. But if you can see there, I don't think it's any shallower than the shallow spool that comes on the Steez limited shallow spool. So you can see it's got that same kind of bearing. I don't know how much that line would. There's that. And then the boost. So that part feels pretty much identical. So it's definitely, I'm anxious to see if the boost part does truly work. Be curious to find out, but hang on, we're going to do something. Hang on a second. Because I do have one of these, so you guys remember, right? I bought 2 of the shallow spools. And then I think I got the other. I think the one that's not shallow spool, if you guys remember, right? I got in on the, where did it, oh boy, give me this. When I bought the Super Destroyer, it came with the 7-to-1, the first limited. So I've got a regular deep spool on this guy. So what I'm going to do, plus I want to see what it looks like on this gold. We're going to cut this line off. Give me a minute here, and we'll get a little closer comparison on what it looks like anyway. So let me get. Oh boy. Hey, don't. So yeah, there's there's a deeper spool, which isn't crazy deep. The regular spool is still a pretty shallow spool. But I'm going to put this one in here. Hang on. Time out, everybody. Yeah, the metanium, that's another thing I was getting ready to talk to you guys once I get playing around here. I cannot make up my mind. And when I can't make up my mind, I just don't buy anything. I know what some of you are probably like, just buy it all, but no. So I've got so many rod and reels in mind that I've kind of thought about trying. Either some of them are just from back in the day, and then others are new. Let me get this in there. I knew this spool. As soon as I saw this spool, I'm like, order it. Oh, God, I got to get that bearing off. So I guess I need to put this bearing on, and then they'll both be those, whatever those bearings are. But I want to put this in. The only downside to this is, once you put line on that, it does away with all of that. I did like the, back in the day, a lot of spools came with that outer ring, like especially Abu Garcia and some of them. Even if the whole spool wasn't a color, it was colored. But that right there would definitely give me all the roughly the same spools. Roughly the spool line capacity. And I use, like I said, I don't know if about this spool, if you'd want to use, it looks pretty thick. That's one thing about this, does not look, I know it may, somewhere it said BFS, but I think this is just a kind of, I call it a performance spool. You know, the boost, basically for braided line. So I wouldn't be afraid just looking at this thing. I don't know about 20-pound braid to a 20-pound leader, but 15-pound, I can tell you right now, by looking at this thickness on this, I wouldn't be afraid to put a 15 or 20-pound braid to a 15-pound leader for sure, no problem. And we may put it to its max test to see what it'll do. But I may also just rig it up first and throw some tin, just see how well, maybe compare it to the shallow spool. Because the, well, let's see here. Hang on, one more to look at. I can't remember what my, because all these spools interchange. That's one thing Brew Tank may know for sure. I heard that the new Steez has a different size spool than the Zillions, or pretty much any old Daiwa. So this one says right on it, Zillion. Let me look at it. Yeah, it's 16-pound, 40 to 80. Yeah, but this spool and the Zillion are exactly the same. And this is like, says 10-pound, 40 to 80 meters, and this is 16-pound. And I'm pretty sure that's what the shallow spool. I am curious. I kind of didn't care, but now it got me curious of which one of those lightweight shallow spools is any lighter. But I'll probably just get them out and just, you know, cast them and compare them cast wise. Did I gain anything, you know, with this still cast? Will it still bomb regular baits? And then can I go lighter, you know, make it a more all around spool compared to the shallow spool? Because none of these, oh boy, I have this all tangled up. I need to probably put new line. See how faded that braid is? I don't know if you guys can tell. So it's definitely, I don't know when the last time I changed that was. It's been well over a year because they've been setting since September before last. But I'm telling you guys, 20-pound braid, if I was a tournament fisherman, yes, I would undo that in a while. But me, I'll probably get out here. First of all, I'm not even going to worry about it because I'm still out doing test cat. I'm doing, you know, stupid stuff with it. So I'll probably do all that, then either put new line on it or at least cut off the first, you know, 15, 20 feet if it still has plenty of line on it. You know, cut off 20 foot of it or something and then just retie. Because if you guys remember right, I started that, I don't know, a couple years ago maybe. Me and Charles both kind of started. I kind of got away from using, at one time I did use 10, 12, 14. I kind of went to, I either used 10-pound braid to a 10-pound or under leader, or I used 20-pound braid for a, you know, anything 20-pound or under down to a 10 kind of thing. Just for ease of, I just order. So now, which I don't even know what I did with it. I had a 10-pound, you know, 1,000 meters of 10 and this 20, and then I've got a, I think a 40, just basically for that one tequila baccarat that I run a little heavier line on it. But the ease of just not worrying about, oh, is this one got 12, 14, 18 or whatever, and any time you get under 10-pound braid on my old eyes and old hands, it's just so much harder to jack with. When the testing that I did do, I mean, you could just, you know, you can take my word for it or not, that yes, if you're really getting all technical in on it, you might gain an extra, you know, couple feet by going with a, I don't know, 6-pound braid to a 6-pound leader over a 10-pound braid to a 6-pound leader. It might, get on the smallest of baits. But if you guys know, like once I get out there fishing, I typically don't throw a real small, like I don't throw, nobody fishes the trout magnet except maybe trout fishermen, maybe not, but like a 16th ounce crappie jig style bait type thing, basically a 16th ounce head with some sort of soft plastic is about as small as I'll ever probably be. Those little 16th ounce flashback minnows, little baits similar to this. How many grams is this bait? While we're on this subject, let's see how much different these. Let's see how much different this thing weighs with the hooks. So that's 4.5 grams, 4 and 5. I guarantee you these baits are lighter. Yeah, not by a lot. 4.2, just by 0.2. I would have thought them hooks would have made a lot more of a difference. I just knew them hooks made more of a difference than that. Just 0.2 maybe. Very small difference. I definitely think this bait, which it may affect where it rides a little bit, but I just know I like it better with those little bit thicker hooks. Anyway, what were we talking about? I was going to talk about something before I got sidetracked on these spool. That thing will not stay. Okay, Brew Tank, help me out. What was we going to talk about? Oh, yeah, the reels. So, I still got this reel. Brew Tank, you want to buy this? At one time, you were going to buy this reel. I still got this reel that I think I need to sell. And I'm thinking about selling one of my Steezes. Since I have 3, if you guys remember right back when I had 3 to 5 of all these different reels, I know I repeat myself, but I'm not a collector, so I don't like collecting reels. So just taking one, using it, and then like, okay, let's just get rid of it. You know, basically that's how I like, let's get rid of this one and get something else to try, you know, for myself and the channel. But then at one point the year, just over a year ago, I'm like, well, okay, I'm going to stick with these things, which I sort of am, but I'm almost to the point now to where there's so many new reels popping up. Like I just got the new Lose, and I'm going to try it. If I like it, it does palm pretty good on if I want to get any more of these Megabass rods. The new Steez is out. I'm tempted to sell one of these Steezes, one of these limiteds, to try the new Steez because I've got 3, so I would basically keep my 2 8.5 shallow spools, take the one with this regular spool. It's a 7-to-1. It's just the limited, the LTD or whatever they call it, not the Steez limited shallow spool. And then get rid of that other thing, and then not buy any more Zillions. But part of me wants to just say, stick to the Zillions and start buying more Megabass rods, because I'm not kidding you. Bonsai drag clicker Steez. Yeah, yeah, the new Steez has a drag clicker. These older Steezes didn't come with them, but I, being the guy I am, bought on all 3 of mine, bought the kits, which you can buy for any of the Steez. The older, all the Steezes are the same as far as the drag. Pretty sure, if I remember that right. Where's it at? Yeah, you can get the right or left hand Steez, and I bought 3 of those, put them in each one. So these are still, you can get the 7-to-1 regular spool. They're not available. That spool, they're like, I don't think they'll ever be put out again. And then I think once these are gone, they're gone. The shallow spool limited. And then you'll see the new Steez is coming out. But the new Steez isn't that much more money than what these are on whether you're getting them from, if you've tried to track them down anywhere else, they're still wanting crazy money for these. And the few that are available on Digitaka are, I think they're only $50 cheaper than the new Steez. So I can't really justify buying any more of these. I have 3. I do love there's not anything I don't like about these except for the fact that even though I can get them cheap from Digitaka for $225 from Digitaka, I can go and I can get one of these. Now, it doesn't have a shallower spool. It still has a pretty good, a very capable spool, and it comes with the clicker, and it's, on some stuff, I guess it palms a touch different. I wouldn't say better. The Steez actually surprised me on how well they do palm. And if you guys remember right, the first reel I got that I really kind of made me pay more attention to them out fishing them, because like in hand they really didn't impress me at the stores. But then I got the when I picked up the Xinghe Lingle, and I'm like, well, that looks just like, which it is. It's almost a direct copy of the outside frame and diameter, very close to the Steez, and which is still technically confined on AliExpress. Can't find the original one with the Shimano copied braking. They basically copied the Steez and then copied the Shimano and the braking system and came out with that Lingle. But they make a couple versions of the Lingle that are a little different. And the old standby with the gold spool, BFS, is available. And then what they call the deep spool, that one, you can still find a few of them. I've been debating about buying a few of those. But then the Xinghe has a couple. They got like a Lingle 2. Then they got a couple other colored ones that they don't call the Lingle, but they're basically the same, built on the same frame. And I think those just started coming out back a year and a half ago. What's this spool? Oh, here's the BFS spool, which this thing is crazy. I have yet to find a spool that beats it, but it's erratic. But if you told me I was going to go into competition against somebody throwing trout magnets, it would be with this crazy spool. That's with the bearing, casing, and all. That spool right there, but it doesn't have boost. I don't think there's any way to add it. I think they have to be designed on the shaft to take boost. I think it's impossible to try to get. I don't know, being expensive $40 experiment, but these are cheap. That, if it works, because what this spool right here will let you do, I'm putting it in these fancier, newer reels or but if this spool works anywhere near as good as the spool that comes in these, say $100, 100, whatever they are for this. This is like a $35, $40 spool from AliExpress that you could put in any of your older Daiwas and have boost capabilities. Oh boy, I was looking for a quick release latch. So just to show you guys what I'm talking about, and that's one thing that is very cool about maybe up until now with the newest Steez. But Daiwa for years, and this is a spool that came from AliExpress. See that spool? That's the very first thing I ever bought off AliExpress was this BFS spool. And then you can't get this exact spool anymore. But I bought that spool. But all of your Daiwas from the time, I think the reel before this one, the bigger, they made a few different sizes here and there, just like the Steez HLC, I think the new Steez, the Steez CT, the Zillion made one, I forget the name, there's a designation that changed it. Fuegos were the same way, but I think some of your older Fuegos, if you guys can see that or not. Oh, that thing fit perfect. There's no wiggle. Look at that. So yeah, you can buy that spool. If it's boosty, just like these other boost spools that Daiwa makes, man, that is a cheap way to get. Because I'm telling you, that's a pretty stout spool. I don't know if you guys can make out how thick. It's hard to tell. This isn't a crazy, like I can just tell the way it felt in my hand. It doesn't feel like a very, cheap filling spool, real super thin, and like it's gonna, I'd be afraid to put a little more power on it. Like none of these spools you really want to go crazy, put 20-pound braid and try to pull yourself out of a snag. But this one, definitely this one is that kind of spool. This spool you could crunch. This is a crazy lightened spool. This spool back in the day is actually, I'm trying to hold them where I can see. I almost swear this spool is stouter. It's built, it almost feels a touch heavier than this spool, but it just feels like it's definitely, you can tell this one's a touch shallower too just by looking at the thing. This one's a little more shallow. This is a true BFS. That's a crazy BFS. This is more of a kind of that, I call it a do-all. That's what I like about the shallow spool. You put 20-pound braid on this and just go nuts. Like you can go put 15, you could put 20-pound braid and then throw on a 10-pound leader just to go get a job done fishing a certain way or whatever, and you still can do it. So like that one spool, if it works like my Steez shallow spools do, I have to find that out. Now the Zillion, so I think almost every Zillion made to date pretty much would work. The Tulas are different. They got the longer shaft. That's a whole nother story or whatever. But what other full-size Daiwas? There's a bunch that are completely going blank on right now. But back in the day, they made some of the Fuegos. Other than the TDZs, don't know about. There was a reel before the TDZ that was called the TD Air. No, there's a couple different Daiwas that then once they settled on this style, and then the Zillion TDZ ran for years, and then they went through several of the other Zillions when they first T-wings. All of those the first T-wing that actually had the hood that popped up. I think almost all of those reels, you can fit spools like this in, and some guys still try to get those and keep those and like to fish those. I've had a couple variations. They made a cheaper one too. I can't remember the name of it right now, but those reels. So there's a bunch of reels that this cheap spool should definitely enhance the performance of them. Let you go to like a braid. Basically, anytime I see a shallower spool, I just know that I can, the normal this SV spool is very shallow already, but that's even more shallow. So you can get, it'll still hold plenty enough 20-pound. You can make crazy long casts and all that, but just let you throw lighter baits easier with even a little less weight on your spool. Lighter spool overall. All right. Well, anyway, I guess it's fireball kind of night. I probably ought to slow it down a little bit. That ain't that much. I ain't got my calipers to tell how much I've drank so far. I've been looking at, I'm going to leave all this out. I'm going to get up at some point in time tomorrow. I think I'm going to cut all my reels off my rods. Probably go ahead and put new line, even though I'm going to play around like I talked about, but then I'll wait to change out the whole line on the spools if I feel the need to later on, not right away, because I kind of like to get out during the winter and do some cast testing. Might even hit a couple different frozen places. And I know when I'm throwing that stuff around on ice or whatever, that ice is actually pretty sharp. That's one thing you got to watch out for if you're going like fishing where it's a chance of freezing. You'd be surprised how quick ice can like jack up your fishing line. So, any questions on reels, rods, whatever? What you guys tell me, and then comment what you guys think. Do you guys still think, like I do, that the Zillion is still the best bang for the buck on any of these? The Brew Tank can let me know if he thinks that new Steez is the real deal. Oh yeah, I just saw tonight, because Brew Tank was telling me that in which I've seen it. I think I watched somebody had a video where they put it on the Poison Adrena, but I thought about getting the Metanium DC, but I just saw a thing today, and they're coming out with the Aldebaran DC, or they already have it. I don't know when it's released or whatever. So I don't know if I couldn't make out in the pictures if it's going to be the same color, that kind of funky blue or whatever. And if you guys remember, I had that reel. I got that reel, and I didn't like that reel. I ended up selling that reel. The performance was better than the older Aldebaran BFS, but something about the older one. I had the chameleon type spool like this for it. I just liked it overall better. It looked better. I guess to me, I felt like it palmed a little better. The new one, I don't know. Maybe I should have kept it longer, let it grow on me. But if you guys remember, I had that the Aldebaran BFS, but now they've got an Aldebaran DC, which I guess is going to be the smallest reel. The Metanium was, I think, the smallest reel that had ever had the DC in it. They had it on a round reel, which was small but pretty heavy. And the Metanium's a pretty heavy reel. The Aldebaran is definitely going to be the lightest reel you've ever been able to get a DC on. So I don't know if I want one of those. And then you guys, I think I asked in another video, has anybody ever tried any of these Baits reels yet that follows this channel? I keep seeing them. I hear the BFS one is not that good compared to just your average, a good BFS reel. It's just so-so. It's kind of probably like the, Cast King Zephyr. It can do BFS, but it is not that great, right? If I was out truly looking for a BFS reel, I already know where I would go. And I almost bought a couple more of those, the Acuras. But I'm like, well, you guys, we've already seen those. I've already had them. They're awesome. They work. They're old news, right? So I don't know if I want to get any of those or not. If you guys don't know, the new High Star reels, BFS, they've kind of got a whole new different braking system. I've watched several videos on those, read up on the research on them. They're the new thing out, which is kind of like they did back in the day when we first got into the, oh shoot. I even got one of those. Hang on a second. What did I do with this? What did I do with that reel? Oh my God. I just had it. Here it is. It doesn't look like it anymore, but if you guys remember, we had the PW 100. And it, back in its day, was because it was lightweight. I know this looks nothing like it. It's a combination of the Sonora Spirit Fox, and all that together, right? This is actually the reel that I caught my personal best bass on, not the casing, and this is like I was playing around with this one. But this reel was known at PW 100, the regular one, and then they came out the Purple Pro or whatever they called it, was kind of known for, they had the GH 100, which was pretty dominant because it had the FTB style, like it was an awesome reel. But then this one kind of came out for how lightweight it was. Well, now they've got the High Star, is kind of pushing those limits, maybe a couple other brands, but High Star has that two-tone, the black and silver one, which was 114 grams, and then they came out with the all-silver one, which is 99 plus or minus 2 grams. Like, that's so crazy marketing. Like, dude, it does not weigh 99 grams. It's 100 plus grams, right? It's just over a 4 ounce, whatever. But then they've got right now limited edition Dragon version of that, which is a few more grams more, just a little more spool, but they got crazy lightweight. The problem with those is I keep watching videos where everybody's grabbing this handle and they're wiggling and it's like, "Rrrr." I'm like, that's junk. I mean, it's not going to last. Even on a lightweight reel that you're not putting it. Here's what happens. Even though you're not putting a lot of power on a bigger, heavier line thing, it's just human nature. When you're reeling, you pull and tug. And so what ends up happening is if you don't have enough stuff here, what'll usually happen, the gears are going to get a little funky eventually. But if you guys remember right, what happened with this reel is you wear out when you're basically the whole assembly's moving like this. The first thing to wear out is the anti-reverse because it's that shaft is going through. I guess I could probably even show you on this one. I don't know. I didn't plan on this being a building thing, but oh wow, I destroyed that. So anyway, there is a bearing right there. If you guys remember right, my PW100, the anti-reverse roller bearing went out of it. And when I took it apart, there was no bearing there. So we had to track down a bearing that fit there and had to get a new anti-reverse steel. So this actually has all that. I think I just rigged this up I was doing a mock-up. But I want to change this back at some point. Charles, I need my parts back. But I think in order to get the weight down, they've skimped enough to where I don't think that those reels would be that... I just don't. I can't make myself, even though they're only like $59. I can't make myself buy any of those high stars. I thought about getting the different Lingles. I thought about just getting the older Lingle that you can still track down a few. Two best bang for the buck: the Zillion and the SLX DCXT. Send you the SLX DCXT to do a shootout with the Zillion, but I gotta send it back. Nah, that's all right. I don't. I mean, I wouldn't mind taking up an offer, but nah, I don't. I'm not ready to do any shootouts right now, anyway. Is the SLX DCXT the one you're talking about? It's kind of a bigger version framing of what the Scorpion and the Crado BFS were off of, so that looks, I think I know which one. Is it the one that came from Japan? Like the American one and the Japanese version are different or something. But I'm telling you guys, I started going back through watching even some of my old videos, right? Do you guys ever watch any of your old videos? And looking through old pictures and stuff, I end up, other than this Shimano, I know I end up getting rid of all my reels because I'm not a collector, but I have had so many Shimanos in the last kind of really since doing the channel also that I'm like, oh, this is going to be awesome. Nah, I don't know. I can't explain it. Something about Shimanos. When I think back to it, I thought I was going to love, if you guys remember when the Crado 200K, the Scorpion, which is basically the same thing, but from Japan, like the red version of it. I got the Crado DC, also that same framing. Those reels look on paper and looking at them in person, until you get them in hand, they fish so much bigger feeling than they should. I guess the gears and the weight and just the way they are, I could not make myself like that reel. I thought for sure I was going to love that reel. Had those. I'll be honest, the Aldebaran, I've had the 50 MGL. I think it was a 50 or the 30. Maybe I had the JDM, which was 30. I think it was a 30, not a 50. But the Aldebarans, I love those reels. This reel, I love how smooth it is. I can't make myself love it over, because I had the monoblocks from the Daiwa monoblocks. And I had two of the Conquest. I had a shallow spool, gold, the older school, Calcutta Conquest. The regular gold one is a 50 series, and then the shallow spool. Had those two. I prefer the monoblocks. I know it's because they're fancier. They don't make them. I don't know. I wish they would come back out with those. I can't make myself like these as well as I do the Daiwa stuff. I guess mentioned I had what is the newest Aldebaran out, BFS. I bought it when it first came out, sold it shortly thereafter. Didn't like it as well as the older one. Did I have the Corrado 50s? I had a couple core. That's the reel I was trying to think of the other day, the Core 50. They had the Chronarch, the Corrado, the Core, which is a magnesium reel. That was the only, I believe that was only 50 series, wasn't it, that they made? Because they had the Aldebaran, which was a 50 in Japan. And then I think over here in the States, you had the Cores, which were basically just a little revamped Aldebarans in the 50 series. Then the 50E Corrado came out, and then they quickly pulled that back, put it out in the Chronarch, and then put put the G Corrados out, the E Chronarchs from the D. But the D, and that's what's funny. I mean, the E's were very good reels, but the Chronarch that everybody that still sought after, if you can find a Corrado, or not a Corrado, if you can find a Corrado 50E in mint condition, is worth probably more money than any other Corrado, mint condition one. The 200 E7s are, they're worth some too. Of course, everybody and their brother fishes like the 300 for the bigger swim baits. But then on Chronarchs, it kind of was the other way. The E, although it was just as good, it didn't go over as well as the Corrado did because people kind of realized what was going on. They liked the D series. So if you came out with the Chronarch, if you still can find one in mint condition, the D7 Chronarch is very sought after. It's still, I think they were 350, 400 new or something. Like you, I don't know if you can buy them for that now. I don't know if anybody still has any. Right now, there's one on eBay that's kind of beat up for like 250. It's pretty chewed. I've spotted it in my hand now. And there's also the Metanium, which is basically what the Chronarch was. The Metanium is on there. They've kind of, Shimano's over the years kind of played around with its names and the Metanium to whether it would be a Chronarch here in the States or the Corrado, and they'd swap back and forth and different stuff. It's kind of what somebody's trying to say that the Daiwa was doing now with the Steez. They claimed that the newest Steez out kind of has more of the ergonomic look to it of the Zillion, which because I think of its popularity, I could see why they were trying to. And basically, I think all they did was they took basically this Steez and kind of smoothed out some of the edges because they realized that that's what the Daiwa Zillion has going for it. It's more of like a bulbous, rounded reel. That's just a more comfortable to palm kind of thing. Yeah, the Daiwas, it's just, I end up liking them better. Same thing with Abu Garcia. If you remember it, I just bought the Abu Garcia, the MG Extreme 2. I love the older Abu Garcia. Well, not necessarily the first. The first Revos they're kind of working on it. They came out the Gen 2, which is basically the same exact reel. They started to refine them. Love those reels. They came out the Gen 3. They totally screwed things. They screwed the pooch. I think a lot of guys, oh, I love those reels. No, for anybody that palms their reels, they dropped that gearbox down. They just totally started to cheapen the reels, and they should have just kept refining that original Revo, in my opinion. And they would be a better company today, in my opinion. I think Abu Garcia, I think Luz, honestly, I swear, I think, in my opinion, Luz has surpassed them. Same warehouse is putting out reels for Abu Garcia and Luz, as far as I still think and know. Abu Garcia was just top dog. Luz were like not what they were. And then it's just, I don't know, you kind of go more towards profit only, or I don't know who steers them in what direction, but I think Luz kind of caught on. First of all, they hire Van Dam and Hackney and some of these guys, and they start putting a little more into like, you got to have it all. You got to have good quality working, ergonomics, looks, awesome reels that just like baits, So a lot of times, I don't care how many fish that bait will catch. Eventually, word of mouth may get out. But if you can make that bait look good and feel good, you got to get the consumer to kind of take a chance on it. And then if it's a good product, it'll sell. Same thing. I seen it with Zebco. Zebco was made awesome stuff and everything they made, and then they just went downhill. There's Zebco 33. I wouldn't piss out the front door for those anything Zebco nowadays. The Quantum is about the same way. You guys seen what that new smoke thing, whatever junk that stuff is? Holy cow. At one time, Quantum, they were tanks. They weighed heavy, but I don't know who was making them for Quantum, but Quantum had some pretty decent reels. The Smoke series, the Tour series, I mean, they were honking tanks, but they'd last, 10 years of working whatever. My cousin still has one to this day. I think I had one of the different smoke reels. It was fine. I just was like, yeah. I'd end up getting rid of it just kind of basically because of weight, and it palmed a little big. But you guys know me, I'm picky. But now I wouldn't piss out the front door for nothing of what that kind of stuff they put out. I think Luz is coming up. I don't know about this new Baits. Everybody and their brother is pulling one of these that's coming from China or somewhere, and they're slapping their brand on it. And Fitzgerald's got reels, and Kistler's got reels, and they're all, you know, uh, no. You're either 13 Fishing, another one. I think they went downhill. I think they came out, if they would have started refining, which I think was a copy of the 50 series Shimano's. In all honesty, I've mentioned that early on when I've owned several of the first batches of the black ones and a couple of the white, whatever, Concept A's, and then the Concept C's. Then I had the red one, whichever that one was. That was a nice reel. Those reels needed a little more refinement. They were a little sharp on the edges compared to the 50 series Shimano's. And then they had that stupid where when you took them apart, you could lose parts easily when you just like basically took the handle off, like a Shimano almost. Like that little funky stuff needed to be done away with. You need to be able to just do simple stuff with not losing and missing all the crap to the reels. I mean, those reels just needed a little, kind of like the Revos, a little more refinement, and could have kept putting them out, changed some colors, not done a ton. Wouldn't have to done a lot. I still think Shimano, honestly, the the best reel that Shimano makes for me, palming wise, is the Corrado BFS. I almost ordered AliExpress. They said a few available. The Scorpion BFS was I don't know if that was the first frame in that size, but that thing just palms. Like, I think they need to take that frame. It's aluminum, so it's a little heavier. Make it out of manganese, and that should be their new flagship reel. Maybe they'll call it an Antares or something. Put DC in it, chrome it out. That is the best palming reel in my opinion, and it works. It just flat out the Corrado in that. I think they make it. Do they still make it in the 70 and then the BFS? Like, I think it palms better than even the older Aldebaran. Definitely, I like it. I like the ergonomics and the looks, everything, than the new stuff. I just can't get my head around the new Metanium. When I felt them up at Rogers Sporting Goods, even put them on reel seat or rods. I don't know, something about it. I like the Bantam. I even had one. I don't know which one of you guys bought the Bantam. Was that you, Brute Tank or whatever? That palms excellent. It's just a heavy tank. It weighs as much as the old Quantum Smoke or whatever. That Bantam though is a very nice palming reel. It just, you can feel the weight of that reel. But I love that reel. If they made it out of manganese or somehow lightened it but kept that same ergonomics, and it's a smooth and a casting reel. But yeah, I'm kind of picky. Like I said, Zillion, Steezes basically have the Lingle, which is basically a copy of that. I've got this Elite Hybo Arise Elite that I'm not really that fond of just because it palms a touch big feeling. It's a very smooth reel too, though, but I'm just kind of like, yeah, I don't know. Was the Z bearings good? Huh? You talking about the bearings that this thing came with? I don't know what you're talking about. The bearing definitely spins good. That sucker spins for days. This one you can't tell because it's got all that stuff on it. Oh, it's got the spring-loaded dampener thing, keep it from vibrating or whatever. But yeah, I'm real anxious to get this out. I don't know if I have time tomorrow. I think it's going to be 39 degrees tomorrow. So I don't know if I'll be able to actually do a shootout type deal, but I may go ahead, put 20-pound braid on it because that's what I've got. I can't find my 10. And that's what I've got on both of my shallow spool Steez spools. But I may go ahead and do a little just kind of comparison on lightweight, what I can throw lightweight, and then what I can turn and cast real hard if this is controllable, doesn't backlash or anything like what my shallow spools do. I don't know if I'll get to it tomorrow or not, but that's what the plan is, to compare that to what it matches up to the most. It's not going to contend, I can just tell you by the weight and the chunk of what it is compared to like a true BFS spool. It's not going to be that, but it may be a very versatile, get down into very lightweight stuff, but yet still then get out and bomb some bigger stuff too, is what I think it's going to be. Oh no, you're not the red, not those. You're talking about the orange ones, the whatever they call the 13. I'm talking about they made a very good, before they had the Boss or whatever, their high-end 13 fishing, like bougie reel was this real pretty red, and it was a nice reel. And it was very smooth, and I think it had a slightly more, it felt more refined than like probably just better bearings than what the black reel I'd had, or the even the white ones, the C's, because the C's weren't real cheap, and then they had another one in between that was kind of up there. I think that was when they first started to get magnesium. It was like more of a grayish color. Then they had the red one. But then the one you're talking about, I almost bought one of those years back when it first came out. You're talking about the one with all of the no bearings, just those crazy whatever bushings hyped up, and it was turned out a pile of crap. But yeah, not that. There was a different one. And I think you can still get all the different 13 fishing reels on eBay. They want like $400 for the Boss. I did see that one on there. Because at one time I wanted to get a Boss, the handle assembly. If you guys remember right, I was wanting to get this, the Lew's handle assembly and a Boss one. And I contacted Lew's, and crazy Lew's lady sent me this one. Didn't even charge me anything. She's like, I need an address. I sent her my address. She sent me the handle. No, never mentioned about cost. I'm like, okay, fine. You go, girl. Could not track down on how to get the Boss one from 13 Fishing. I was going to get that handle assembly just to try it. And then if I liked one over the other, I was going to order more, actually. And I still might, because now I have the other Lew's reel that has one of these on it. And I do like that, but I don't know if I like it on every reel to be that extra little length. This is kind of more my power on the Super Destroyer. So, little stouter, meaner. Then I go smaller to like just, the, I don't know. It's just it's a mindset thing, really. It doesn't really matter. I am curious on what this thing will do, because this thing isn't a very deep spool either. But I'm still liking this reel. I'm not sure about the rod and reel combo. It matches up and it is all loose, but part of me is like, I'm just going to get out and fish it and see. And my plan is to leave it together, but my also plan could change if there's something I don't like about it, the rod to the reel or whatever, because that's what never fails. Every time I get something that I'm like, oh, those go good together, just like Brutain's talking about putting the Steez on a Shimano or whatever, I find a lot of times that's just the way it ends up working out a little better. Not everything, I don't know. It doesn't have to be, you don't need all Daiwa rods, Daiwa reels. That's another thing I was going to talk about. the crazy prices of some of this stuff. Holy cow. I think it was the Steez, one of those Steez rods, $1,200. Are you freaking kidding me? Like, where have we gone? Where in the world have we gone when, where are we at in life to where this right here, this rod right here, Mega Bass, Super Destroyer, P5, becomes a budget rod. It's the new budget of $500. Even if you buy a full price, $500 rod becomes like, oh, that's a good deal. That's a budget rod, because the Steez new AGS or new whatever are $1,200. Gee, money. Are you serious? I mean, this one, I don't even know if I gave $300 for it. I can't remember now. I got it used. It came with the 7-to-1 Steez, and I gave I don't even remember exactly now the price. Met a guy here at the local Bass Pro Shop. Looked at it, was like, "Yep, I'll buy it," and it was a good deal. It was cheaper than I could have went to Digitaka and bought either or whatever kind of thing, combined. So I was like, "Yeah." Made him deal on it. He wouldn't separate them. Otherwise, I wasn't even going to buy the Super Destroyer. I'm like, "No, I don't want it. It's a little too stiff for what I thought I wanted," kind of thing. I'm like, I don't know if I want that. I am so glad I bought this rod. I bought this thing, took it out fishing, and went, I've never felt a better spinnerbait rod in my life. I like short rods. And this 6.9 F6, you initially think, that's probably a little stiff. No, it is perfect. You can throw chatterbaits. If anything, it's too stiff for chatterbaits. But it is not too stiff for spinnerbaits, jigs. I kind of have all my favorite stuff in what I call my wheelhouse. 3/8 to half-ounce baits that just bomb them, and you can fish them very effectively, and you're in tune and in touch with them. They don't feel overloaded, and it doesn't feel like you're trying to throw something too light. And there's a bunch of and I like that short. Over 6 foot, but under 7 foot, and that could be 6'7" to 6'11". That's what my range are, but probably 6'9" and 10 are the sweet spots. It's just that you can get everything done. You can fit tight areas. You can cast long. You can make long bombs with it. You can do it with the 6-foot rod if you know what you're doing. Yes, you might be able to get more distance out of certain other stuff and bigger baits, but I've watched some people make crazy casts with the 5'6" pistol grip back in the day. Like when you get, and I'm not saying I can do it, but when you get somebody who knows how to cast and work a bait caster right, that 7'8" rod to that 6'6" rod, only so much of that actual loading part. There's a pendulum part that's wider up at the top, but more so if you've got the rod loading right and you know how to use that, and then when you cast, that is the key. If you've got an 8-foot rod and it's not loading up right with the bait, you're still not going to get the distance you would if you had a little shorter rod that is properly going. So yes, 7'6" set up right will outcast a 6'6" set up right. But for a lot of stuff, and if just what you're using, and most of the time, you don't need that long cast. Where did it go blurry at? Okay. So anyway, I know, enough of my rant on long rods. That's why everybody keeps getting on me about long rods. I do have a 7-footer, the Tequila Baccarat. 6'11", Poison Adrenaline medium plus. 6'9", Super Destroyer. Or no, sorry, 6'10", X Pride medium, but it's longer, but it's less power. Then a 6'9", then a 6'8" blade, and then a couple more 6'8" in the pure lure, the feeling, and then the whatever that other one's called. AliExpress rods that are still very good rods. So yeah, I'm gonna end this video. We've already been talking for over an hour again. But yeah, the Steez rods are insane, and definitely the new. I'm kind of still trying to figure out what I think of the new Daiwa X10, or not Daiwa, Megabass X10 rods. I've just seen them, and like I know they put them. I think just Megabass. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but what they do, and they know what they're doing. They come out with the cheaper brand, this or that, and it's out for a while. Then they're like, oh, they updated their higher end, which they even make some higher. They do make $1,000 rods and whatever on these crazy other ones, but they're more of like artwork also on top of some of their top end blanks. But the P5 is like their flagship. Everybody and their brother has it. Tournaments to just the enthusiast kind of thing. But then they came out. They had the Rochi lineup, and then the Levantes or whatever. And then there's another one somewhere. Where was there? Purple, or was that older Levantes? But anyway, then they come out now the X10, which they claim it's all due to the environment and different blanks, which I get that. But then they put the price like right in between. So they have a $199 rod, a $299 rod, $399 rod, $499 rod. And they kind of also change where those rods set. Some of them are a little different length, a little different action, to where Megabass wants you to buy each and every one of their rods to fish each and every one of their different baits with. But you don't need all that, and you can definitely just need a few different rods. But the X10, I'm curious on where kind of the weight is, because I feel the Rochis Double X look good, and the few I felt when I was at Shield, they're just heavier. They're like heavier than the rods need to be. And I don't know why. I don't know if that's just something Megabass does, kind of like Shimano kind of dummies up some of their cheaper reels just so they don't have the technology. They won't beat their higher end reels. That's why they do it to their rods. So they just feel heavier, so make you want to buy the P5s or whatever. Because I feel Daiwa has the technology, and Shimano and Megabass, for example, they could make every one of their like reel lines a little better, and the rod lines on some of these brands. It's just they kind of dummy some of that stuff up to make, they can still sell it for that price, but then they will, make us more enthusiasts on certain ones, pay more for the higher end stuff. That's why I like some of these companies. They just that's the best they got. They threw everything into whatever, like the baits reels, kind of like 13 Fishing did originally with their reels. They're like, we're just here. That's the best we can make right now. And I think some of them go backwards the wrong way if they would have just went more refinement instead of worrying about making a different style and the concept this and the this, that, and the elements and all that crap. But on the Megabass, I don't know about the X10s. I kind of want to try one, but I can tell you right now, going through Digitaka, even though it doesn't come with the warranty, like you have to be doing something stupid to break these rods yourself. These the P5 blanks are very good, and you can get what $350 basically, instead of spending $400 for an X10 that I'm sure is going to be heavy. The Orochis for $300, I definitely would not. It just feels too heavy. I had a few of the Dobbins rods back in the day, which I kind of like the older look than the new. I don't know, whatever they're not the XPs, but that next HPs maybe the original. They kind of were a brownish orange color. I had a 7'2" or 4. Other than it being just a little longer than I like. I love that rod. That was at the time like the highest end rod I'd owned for a while, and that was a very good rod. But then I did have a couple other ones. I kind of like all of the older styling of the Dobbins. I don't know if the rods got any better, but their weight is kind of an issue. Also, I feel you can go and get a rod that'll do about the same thing and lighter, especially like with the X Prides being out. Some of the higher end Dobbins, I would definitely pick a Poison Adrena over the Dobbins, but I kind of want to like the Dobbins rods because I did have was it 735C, and then the 60. I had that little bitty glass crankbait rod. Man, that was awesome for little square bills. That was a badass rod. And then I want to say 735C for a jig rod. That was both those rods were awesome. Then I had that higher end just for like kind of all around. It was, even though it was too long, 7 foot 2 or 4, I can't remember. But I just kind of, that was because it was so expensive, I just tried to throw everything I could throw on it. And it actually would. It may not do it the greatest, but that was an awesome rod. And then using that one for my jig and then the other one for my crankbaits. That was around the time I had the second generation of, oh shoot, the Revos. I mean, there's some good combos. I could tear some fish up with those combos, and it all felt pretty good. And I feel that they kind of went a little awkward on their styling, and then I don't think they got, if anything, they got heavier. They definitely didn't get any lighter, I don't think, in the blank material, in my opinion. Nikon rods from Malaysia. No, I don't think I have. Brew Tank's asking me, Bonsai, you can only take one bait, zinkers or chatterbait. Well, that's real simple, but I have to ask one more question. I'll basically put it two ways because I have two answers depending on how you'd answer this question. Do I have to catch a fish, or am I fishing for fun, but I more than likely will catch a fish? Because there's no, as much as I love chatterbaits, if I have to go fishing and catch a fish, I will take a worm over anything first. I will take a zinkers over any of those worms. Next would be a shaky head zink or Z-Man shaky head of some kind, or similar to that, or like a Cinco, or like the Ocho, like something like that, because you can always cut that down and basically turn it into a TRD, right? So that, like, if you have to catch a fish, I still swear by those. From the time I've just basically I bought TRDs and letting kids, I kind of just couldn't see myself throwing them, right? You're just like, oh, dude, that's GAY, right? And then you're like, okay, here, Noah, here, try this. Or Matt's daughter's like, here, I'll bring you up, here, throw that out. And then they just catch fish. And then you're like, and then they catch another fish, and they catch another fish. And then you're going, man, I'm getting outfished by this little kid. You're like, give me that TRD, or give me that worm. And then zinkers is like, you're like almost to that effect, but a next step up once you kind of learn. I like the idea of wacky rigged worms. I don't like two things: hookup ratios and the fact of just anything other than a zinkers. You're going to lose ton. Like, you're going to just go through baits. They don't make a good salt impregnated worm, in my opinion. That just, you're just going to. They definitely get bit. I feel that if you don't play with how you're hooking, that's why so many guys have the different things crossed, and you got to get the wacky hook just right, because like fish come in depending on which way they come and hit it. A lot of times that huge worm just, it's in the way of the hook getting him, that you will lose way more fish wacky rigged. I found, just take a freaking old zinkers, Texas rig a hook, weightless, or a shaky head with whatever 16th, then an 1/8 ounce, and if you even need to go a little bit bigger, but a regular 16th ounce on a zinkers, and throw it out there, and then you can kind of pull it around, and you can kind of let it drop. And then if you really need to, you just hook it straight in the middle, or then if they're that finicky and you need to rig it up to where it falls, then you have a couple different types of. And I think you actually want a little bit bigger than you think you normally might for that wacky hook. But the worms are, for me, even over any kind of a jig. You might catch a bigger fish on a jig or whatever. But my next thing would honestly probably still be soft plastic, and it would probably be it would be a creature bait, but it'd probably be specifically one. It'd probably be a Reaction Innovation Sweet Beaver. And honestly, around here, I could almost tell you the colors. It would be the Donkey Punch, or sprayed grass, There's one other color. There's like 3 colors I really liked in those reaction innovation baits, but the sweet beavers, I quit using them because they just fell off the hook. About it, you catch a dink, need a new bait. Catch another, and they would bite. Problem is, the dinks love them. You still catch big bass, but the dinks love those baits. I've kind of started now to where, and I think I can show you. And hang on, Brute, I'll give you my top 5. But what did I do with those baits? I was going through these the other day. Hang on, don't go anywhere. Here we go. I kind of went away, if you guys remember right, until I found these baits, right? Until I and not that I found them, but until I actually tried these on jigs, chatterbaits, and other stuff. That little Strike King bait, Baby Rage Menace. You could do Rage Menace, but like the Baby Rage Menace for kicking and stuff. That little bait on like chatterbaits, on whatever. I was kind of finding that I like to crawl on my chatterbaits. I just do. Spinner baits, I really didn't even use anything other than maybe a stinger hook. I kind of started using now like little minnows or something. That bait is gone. Let me get one out. But I used to just put the Reaction Innovation Sweet Beavers on the back of my chatterbaits and, you know, fished them Texas style by themselves and put them on then. And I just kind of got... I was used to just going through baits, but then a few years back, I was trying out baits to find something to replace those that would do the job and didn't wear out as fast. Now, these I used for a year or so, and then I kind of got away from them, but I think I was just looking the other day that I have a few left, but I think I want to order some more of these in the full size too. I like the little ones for the back of my chatterbaits, the 3/8 for sure, but even the 1/2 ounce, you just use these on the back of the chatterbaits also. But then you also can just, like I feel these, I can run on my chatterbaits, but then I can also rig them up Texas style and fish them. When it comes to these Rage Menace or Baby Rage Menace, I feel they lose something. They don't have as many appendages. So I think this is better for by itself, but these for trailers, but then you can use these for both. So I just kind of wanted to get back into these. And there's some colors in these that you can't find anywhere else. That a Slayer, if you got, I've talked about it in years. It's been a couple years since I was really into these. And several of the Riot baits, but that, what do they even call these? I forget what they even call these stupid things. Hang on, I know I got a package. I know the color, Slayer, but what do they call that stupid thing? That's a Vigilante. We have the Vigilante bait. They make a bunch of them. Little Fuzzy. Yeah, the Fuzzy Beaver and the Little Fuzzy. I knew I was going to think of it. But that Slayer color is just that purple and green. There's several. They make a bunch of good colors. I like those colors. And then I kind of tried these, I think maybe last year, the year before, me and Matt, the Vigilantes. I was trying to find a bait that would imitate, kind of like what he was having luck with, a brush hog or baby brush hogs and stuff like that. And I kind of seen where these have a little potential. They got pretty good flappers, but I don't know. There's just something about those. I think these would actually be good on the back of chatterbaits, but I think it's a lot of work to get there. So to where you could just buy the Baby Rage Menace. I think these would work real good on the back of chatterbaits, but you would want to like peel these off, boom, pop these off, pop all those off, and then trim it to whatever length you need it on your chatterbait just with these 2 appendages. So that's a lot of work just to fit it on the back of a chatterbait when you can just pull these straight out of the package. You actually run them. Let me get one if I can find one somewhere. I don't know if I got one rigged up. No, I don't have one rigged up, but you can, there's a full size. I think that's the regular. I think that's a Rage. And I just need to try more of the Strike King other ones, but same thing with once you get soft plastics, they don't, The Baby Rage Menace to compared to, it's not a huge difference. But I like that smaller one. It lets a chatterbait jump around more. For a jig, you may be better off to use the bigger one, and then if you need to shorten the length of whatever, do it that way. But I kind of want to try these riot baits out again. Maybe get a few more of the regular full-size ones. Because you can also rig them up, like especially on the big blade. I could rig the full-size fuzzy beaver up on the big blade or rig it by itself, Texas style. Or you could definitely put this. You could put this little guy, goes good, okay on some of the shaky heads that if they've got a big enough EWG style. EWG. So yeah. Let me put this back up. Brew Tank was asking me my 5 favorite, what? Best 5, you mean best 5 soft plastics, best 5 baits in general? What are you asking me best 5 about? Crush City Cleanup Crawl, good too. Here's the thing though, man, there's so many out there that are just, there's just so many baits, period. In this world, in this day and age, it's ridiculous on, and I'm almost any bait. Like if you've ever watched me in a video or just watched certain people, watch the guy out fishing with the piece of Twizzlers, right, or the piece of hot dog, or almost any bait will catch a fish, and then sometimes you don't need any special thing. But I still can't figure out why I can't find a Elastec bait that catches them on the crawl, the creature style stuff. Like, I feel it's such a huge difference. Like, I swear that, just not even the stretch of a Z-Man, the Elastec, but the buoyancy of it and the way it works usually. I think it's something to do with it's too, I don't know if it's not too buoyant. Maybe it's too soft a material. Maybe it's too deadening. There's no, it doesn't put off the same vibration on the lateral lines, but I would swear that any Elastec bait that has anything like this, even though you may see it in the water working, I don't think it puts off the same as what a normal soft plastic does. I'd almost swear to that nowadays, because I swear that the Palmetto Bug, which it doesn't have any appendages, and then that other one that I tried to make work, I'd swear those things just don't have the ability. I think I got one right here. Oh, you should not be in there with those other baits, dude. This little dude was in there with the Z-Man stuff. You're going to get ate up. You were not Elastec, but if you guys remember, I got those a while back. These little like baits that you just like float around. It doesn't take a lot, honestly, the TRDs, to catch a fish on a soft plastic piece of bait. But for some reason, when it comes to any of these Z-Mans, and I love this color, but I just can't get these baits to work as well as like those baits I just showed you, or a baby brush hog, or almost any other regular bait. And I'd almost say it's just, you can't get these to make the, other than if fish just comes up and it happens to look at it and it looks all right, maybe, but it shouldn't matter. That, even as nasty as that is, I don't know if you can see it, like the things are all out of whack. That thing, I should be able to rig up and throw it out and pull that through the water. Something should eat that. Maybe not as fast as, this, but like this going through the water, this going through the water on a whether it be a jig or whatever. The confidence I have in actually some other regular plastic, whether it be even what's funny is, even a sweet beaver without any kind of thing, not a kinky beaver. And I think the sweet beaver, a lot of guys hardly ever hear them talk about this. I think a sweet beaver works the way it does, why it does, is for a couple things. Actually, I have a couple over here. How did these guys get over here? I don't even know why I got baits where I got baits. There's another one of those And I like these baits, but I think they're lacking in something that these baits do very well. And I haven't heard a lot of people talk about this, so I'm going to talk about it right now. Not just the fact it's got these appendages. This is, what are these? These are a different one. But they all have the same body. The Reaction Innovations are the first one, as far as I know, that they designed this body. So you rig it up, right? And when you're pulling it through the water, you see all these ribs going this way. Well, you could imagine, like, trying to, drive a car that everything's turned like that, right? As opposed to if you were going this way, right? Aerodynamic, as opposite of aerodynamic as you can get. So I think there's something to that, just that body being drugged through the water creates some sort of commotion. Now with this one, you got these flappers doing the flapping, and there's times when this thing just won't work, and there's other times when that is almost all that will work, because I think it's that extra crazy commotion. But I think that just sometimes a regular sweet beaver, because it's got a few appendages, but they're just flat, which basically you could just flatten that. You're not too much different. They got a couple more appendages here. But I think that's where any of the Z-Man Last Tech is missing, is that just harder plastic. It still looks kind of realistic, but when it's moving through the water, it gives off something that your Last Tech doesn't. Now, why the worms work is just because they're not trying to imitate crawdads or nothing. They're imitating a worm, which probably slinkies through the water and doesn't have any commotion. So it's just a more natural. Of course, that's a worm. I'm going to eat it because it's just going through the water. But almost anything that isn't a worm going through the water should be putting off some sort of thing that their lateral line picks up. That I feel like and that's just speculation. I think that's part of the reason why I can't seem to get near the bites when I've tried palmetto bugs and whatever this thing's called. I forget the name of it. Z-Man. I've played with the changing these things up, the palmetto bugs. I've tried playing with all the different appendages to get them to put out more whatever. I think they look very, they should get hit. Just dragging it through the water, it should accidentally, like it shouldn't take a lot. It's not rocket science to get bit on this, but I have no faith in that bait. That bait, compared to this bait, compared to even this bait. If you told me I had to go catch a fish on one of those, first one I grab would be this guy right here, just dragging this little dude right here around. First thing, actually, if I had a true sweet beaver, would be it. Then this guy, just for the fluttering it's going to do, and more of a, like, this is awesome for like a punch style, like where you're just going up and down is where these kind of really work. Once you start moving it just like a long bottom, you're probably better off to have something with a little more appendages, maybe not as crazy flapping as these, in my opinion. This guy, I don't know what to do with him. Nothing. There's nothing you can do. He won't work. No matter where you throw him, he won't work. And I just picked up these. I hadn't really gotten far with these yet when we stopped kind of fishing. But I'm not impressed with these either. These were the ones coming from AliExpress so far. I don't know. I think, like I said, I think I'm going to go back to my these. I may even go all the way back to Reaction Innovations, just some sweet beavers, a couple different colors, like the Donkey Punch, the Sprayed Grass. Can't think of that other color. There's another color or two that I really like in those. I may just get a couple packages of those and compare with the Slayer color to the Sprayed Grass, and then maybe, I don't know, something else. 5 baits your go-to. You should know that by now. All right. Chatterbait. Z-Man chatterbait. Jackhammer. Jackhammer knockoff. Big blade. And the Minimax. No. Top 5. They're all chatterbaits. Now, before I get out of here, I will tell you my 5 top go-to baits. I've actually already named them, but I'll give you 3 soft plastics just because they happen to be right here in this day box, and I need to change that out to a brand new one. And I need to just throw that away. I don't even know what that's doing in there. But this is a Zinkers, but I got it cut down. But any sort of TRD finesse worms, I think that's a copper truce or something, but color really doesn't make a huge difference. Something kind of natural. But this hook right here, 16th ounce VMC finesse rugby jig. Finesse rugby jig because it's got that thing in it. The one that, or whichever one that has it sticking up, you want. The one that's got like the, I think just a rugby jig is more like it's wanting you to put the line down closer. The eye set's different. I think you get also better hookups with this style. But finesse rugby jig, 16th ounce, and get 8th ounce also, just for the, you might need to get a little, and they even got a bigger size, but I typically, 16th ounce is the main one I throw. But then you can rig this thing up. You can even actually, it's not the greatest, but if you're throwing in some nasty conditions and nothing wants to hit, you can cut the Zinkers down to where it just barely fits on this dude. It's not ideal because you want that thing to wiggle or whatever. But I've seen times when me and Charles were like throwing in the nastiest of stuff to where you want to throw basically you want a sort of decent hook, but you want to throw the littlest thing just in the nastiest stuff, and you just get down there and wiggle it and jiggle it and kind of actually work it erratically, but in some nasty stuff, just bouncing it off brush or little, just whatever. And that little baby right there will get nailed too at times. Or just hook it up on a regular Ned head kind of thing. But what I've found, what I will kind of just start with, and then I will slow down and go to smaller. And when I go out fishing, this is an old nasty worm, but it technically still can probably catch some fish, is to rig this baby up and start here with that finesse rugby jig. And this one's a little, oh boy, this thing's about out of whack. But I start here and I just start throwing that around. And when this thing is new, it almost doesn't, that 16th ounce doesn't really make a big difference. It kind of starts sinking pretty fast, but then as it gets older, it'll kind of drop first, and then when it gets to the bottom, it kind of turns into a thick, shaky head, or like what these are. So it's kind of got a little more floating to it. But I like to throw this out, whether it's a brand new one, old one, or whatever, and just let it get to the bottom. And then I like to actually kind of pop it, and I want to, instead of like you would pull a soft jerk bait and you're going to work it back towards the boat, like on a set, height through the water. I like to use these sort of in that thing to get all the way down, and then instead of across the horizon working one, go vertical. So kind of try to make it work like you would a soft jerk bait going this way, straight up and down. So pop it up and then drop it, give it slack and let it fall. And then when it's all like it is, and you might need to even go to an 1/8 ounce and then let it fall. But kind of erratic worm flopping around will a lot of times get them hitting where they wouldn't even want to, fishing a soft plastic slowly across the bottom or through grass or whatever. But that soft plastic is where I would go. And then, like I said, going from that would be like a true sweet beaver or something like this, rigged up after I've played with the worms. But usually here, and usually if they're not hitting that, I might go to either one of those, or I might just abandon ship on bottom soft plastic stuff. I may try to go a different route to, make them react to something. Could be like, whether it be to like a jerk bait thing, or almost like speed cranking crankbaits, or chatterbaits, like trying to get it in their face. But that's where I go pretty much, 4 places with like soft plastic. Jigs is like one of the last places I go. It's not really my top 5 confidence baits, but that's like soft plastic stuff. So I don't really have any. Chatterbait is, well, I guess I'll have to go. I'm just going to give you some of my like top hard baits, like, because I feel you can cover so much water. Get out of there. Like, honestly, if it's anywhere cold water, a jerkbait is hard to beat nowadays. I feel you can get them enticed with the jerkbait once the water's cold. If you're not cold water and you're summertime fishing, you can still catch them like this, but it's definitely one of those things I'm like, I'm not throwing a jerkbait hardly at all. I would then prefer to go to some sort of, try to go with the shallower running, and if I can, the smaller square bill I can get away with. But if I have to go deeper and deeper, even until I get to like a wiggle wart style cranks, but I try to start with that littlest. A lot of guys go the opposite way, and I guess every once in a while I will, but I kind of like to start with the smaller ones or shallower water. Then I throw the smaller ones because they will run shallower without digging in, and then go deeper as I guess I need to in my square bills. But I have a lot of confidence in square bills in general, especially like I've talked about. You give me the ones that can go through any of the nastiest stuff like these ATVs and not get hung up, I love them. But then a lot of times, for like just going out and trying to find fish, my most, I guess, confidence, like looking for a bite, would be top water, which this you can pop it or you can walk it. So the Mega Bass Pop Max is just like, it's the best top water hard bait ever made. Other than a buzz bait would be the only top water bait I put in front of it, maybe the old school buzz baits. But then just the all around search bait, it's hard to beat this, except for the fact you can lose them. Because if you're out searching and you're on new body of water and you're looking for fish, this is one of the worst ways to do it, because you're going to lose a lot of these. You'll find the brush and it'll be too late to figure it out. So if I know I'm in deeper water, bigger bodies, there's probably not brush, I like to use the rattle traps. It's just, you can bomb it and then you can come back fairly quick. You don't have to, usually something will whack at it, you'll nick something or whatever. So you either, was that cover or was that a bite? And then you found it, then you can go back with something else. Maybe if you're like, I don't want to throw that again. I think I just nicked across some rock or brush or whatever. And maybe it was only 5 to 8 feet or 6. And you're like, let me throw this, whether it be a deeper diving crankback or something that may bounce off of it instead of getting hung up. But it's hard to beat that for search bait. Jerk bait can kind of be used as a search bait somewhat, but you can just run a rattle trap faster. But then it's just hard to beat these style of baits, those 1.0 or 1.5s. Back in the day, I think I've talked about it before. My top baits, period, I talked about that worm. I don't know. I did have the worm still. I think I still do. I talk about this a lot more than I probably should. That worm was my confidence bait. And I don't think I have any more. I think I've taken them all out. Man's Baby -1, which is basically the shallowest little crank you can get. They still make them, I think, but they kind of, years back, they lost their, just like I talked about other thing, the company kind of went downhill. Their color patterns became off. They had like a bluegill colored one that was just badass. But the man's baby -1 kind of just had that bill that it just barely gets. It's almost, you can actually run it slow, and it's almost like a wake bait that is at the surface or just below. But as you crank it a little faster, it would get down. It's in that like less than a foot. Man's one baby -1, whatever. You know ones I'm talking about. A lot of you guys probably know them. That was like, because I was fishing more probably ponds or little small sections of lakes, and you can get in that shallower water. And between that man's, that spinner, and then spinner baits, which was usually the was it the man's, whatever, Hank Parker, the ones he used, it was his series. The I can't remember the exact name of them, but usually those three. So I would usually try to have a lighter rod for the lighter for like the man's 1-, like my smaller cranks. Really wasn't square bills. It was just any crank that would run pretty shallow, almost top water, buzz bait, spinner bait. So that was before chatterbaits were even made. Uh, and then that Jean LaRue tomato red worm. This is a new mold. Back when they started doing that hand pouring or whatever crap, which sucks. The old school ones were just better. They were more of just round balls that looked like they were glued together, basically, but it was the mold as just the way they were. Just like I talked about this bait, the presence in the water when you're pulling it through, I think those worms that have those round, very bulbous ball, like the original ones of these, just were a better bait, in my opinion. They had the same, that hook tail, curly tail, whatever they call that, same tail, but I think this just, that tomato red color I liked, but then those things. So I think actually this color, I can't tell you if this gets harder to see when it's on bottom, even at only like 6 foot, or if it's easier to see, or if it just looks black. But that color with that bulbous thing, and then just dragging it. I drag it like a foot, and then I would drag it, and then if I felt something, I would just drag it until I felt it, whether it popped up and over or just pulled off a piece of grass, and then I'd kill it. And then I just pull it another foot or two, or until I felt that, if before a foot or so was up and I felt it nick something, then I would, like right as I felt like it popped off of it, I'd stop it. And man, that was a deadly way of just catching them. When I'm talking like nothing else, like you're like, they won't hit anything. None of them not biting today. Like, let me throw this worm. Bam! Bites on. Which now, everybody, which you would be going, some sort of shaky head, some sort of TRD, some sort of zinkers, or you'd be dropping a wacky rigged Cinco and letting it fall, in roughly areas where you think they are. And that's kind of, you could still, probably going to be the same thing, just slow rolling Tex rig. A lot of people, you could also do the Carolina rig type thing, or throw a lizard, or throw a, oh shoot. What was I trying to think of? Not a lizard, but yeah, it'll come to me. But soft plastic, just throw it down there and kind of work it slow. Oh, brush hog. Baby brush hogs and brush hogs. I actually prefer baby brush hogs over the brush hogs. So anyway, I got to get off here. Top water, yeah, like I mentioned, the Pop Max is my favorite top water ever. But man, you want the big bass right here. So I'm just going to give you top 3. If you don't have these in your top water arsenal, a big full rig, you can have the smaller ones too, but a full size whopper plopper, you're going to need to throw. You can get out there on a medium, and man, you better yank hard when you get a bite. It can be done, but medium heavy for sure would be better to almost a heavy on these full size 130s. I think that is. I think that's a 130. That baby's already caught a lot of fish. But that one, and then this you got to have. This is top. This would be right there with it, honestly, nowadays. But then before all of those, not before poppers. Poppers may have been the first topwater bait there was, or some kind of plug. But for me, the buzz bait, man, these things, when the first, I don't know, decade these were out, maybe a couple decades. I don't know how long they're out before I actually started fishing. But man, a buzz bait, still deadly. But man, there's just times when this is what you need to be throwing to catch topwater fish. probably still the funnest way because it's like a fast pace, just casting and reeling. Like I've got on bites before where as fast as you could cast a buzzbait out, man, there's gonna be a fish up there to hit it. I've been on a few of those now. Like I remember back uh, years ago, probably in my early 20s. So I'm 54 now. So yeah, probably 30 years ago, just flat as fast as we could cast them out. Me and my cousin were fishing and just one fish right out. You either got the fish or he blew up and you missed it and you just reeled in real fast, cast back out. And then if you remember right, me and Matt, we were out for like a weekend or so back in the when it first was colder weather, just a little bit colder. Got a bite with these actual Guggen ones and kind of sucked. We had to kind of tune some of them up, but awesome top water. Got to have buzz baits. You got to have a popper, which kind of can walk, and then you got to have these whopper ploppers. They make the Chopo, but I'd still prefer the whopper plopper over. The whopper plopper is the original of this. The Chopo is a copy of it. It's a pretty good bait, but the whopper plopper, man. I've still got my original whopper plopper in this size, the very first one I ever bought, and it's still, I haven't changed the hooks. It's like, these baits were designed like crazy good and just flat catch fish. But this one I've only had a couple years and already has torn up some fish. There's several gouges on it. I think I caught 2 6-pounders on it in one day. Awesome bait. Bluegill Tackle Warehouse exclusive elusive color. I don't know if they still got that or not, but that thing works. All right, I gotta go, guys. I got a fireball up. I should already be 2 or 3 deep into this fireball. It's only like a shot per glass. But stay tuned. See what this spool will do. I'm excited for the boost part. But I'm actually excited. It is a very shallow spool that looks pretty stout. Going to have the boost. Whether it works or not, I don't know. But a very affordable way to get the boost, if the boost works, to put in any of the other Zillions or Steezes or whatever. So if I try this and I really like it, it's a possibility because you could get this. You could order some of these like we talked about it to a couple different times. A couple of you guys we've talked about this. You can find old Steezes. Problem is, they're still probably about $200. It's like a Steez A, basically. It's a aluminum Steez. You can find the magnesium ones also. But I guess if you could get like $35 for this, you could get you a drag clicker kit. I think, I've already forget how much these were. But like you get a drag clicker kit and then a boost spool and then maybe even slap your own paint on it or whatever. Or just run it beat up, right? Just run the old beater, right? Don't worry about it. Like that's what this reel is. This reel's kind of been touched up at some point, but let's face it. Looks wise, it's seen better days. It's got some cosmetic issues, but it's a good functioning reel. So you slap a spool, even if you get the older, you can buy this one we put in it, but drag clicker kits for an older TDZ or the Zillion. If you find an older Zillion that looks like this style, it's going to be heavy. They were heavy. The TDZs are light. You can still come across those. You could slap in you a boost spool, add a drag clicker or whatever. They palm a little bigger, but they're, and you just kind of get out there. Would be pretty sweet deal in my opinion. If that spool works good. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Stay tuned. I'll let you know as soon as I know what I think of this spool. I'm hoping to get it done tomorrow, but we'll just have to see how it goes. So, see you later.